Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Vajjana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Vajjana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari. Jaya Mr. Paramahansa, Varudikacharya Ashtotar, the Shishima, the Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa, Varudikacharya Ashtotar, the Shishima, the Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavini ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Grantharaj srimadbhagavatam ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Narayanam namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Hadiriyet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta Prayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord who is glorified in transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this third day of July 2019 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in Canto 4, the creation of the fourth order, Chapter 14, the story of King Vena, text number 19. Tasya Ragyo Mahabhaga Bhagavan Bhuta Bhavanaha Paritushyati Vishvatma Tishtato Nijashasane Tasya ragyo mahabhaga Bhagavan bhuta bhavanaha Paditushyati vishvatma Tishtato nijashasane Tasya ragyo mahabhaga Bhagavan bhuta bhavanaha Paditushyati vishvatma Tishtato nijashasane Tasya ragyo mahabhagaha Bhagavan bhuta bhavanaha Paditushyati vishvatma Tishtato nijashasane. Damodar. Tasya ragyo mahabhagaha Ragyo. I'm not saying Bhagava, I say Bhuta Bhavanaha. Tasya ragyo mahabhaga. I said, that's what I'm saying. Just start again. No. Oh, I know what you're hearing. Because the melody, because he has a different melody. Tasya ragyo mahabhaga. And I have Tasya ragyo mahabhagaha. I'm not saying bhagaha. I'm saying bhagaha. But if you want, you see what I'm saying? Anyway, go ahead. Bhagavan bhuta bhavanaha Paditushyati vishvatma Tishtato nijashasane. Dharmaraj. Tasya ragyo mahabhaga Bhagavan bhuta bhavanaha Paditushyati vishvatma Tishtato nijashasane. Devavrat. Tasya rago mahabhaga Bhagavan bhuta bhavanaha Paditushyati vishvatma Tishtato nijasasane. Would you like to chant? Tasya raga mahabhaga Bhagavan bhuta bhavanaha Paditushyati vishvatma Tishtato nijashasane. Tasya, with him. Ragyaha, the king. Mahabhaga, O noble one. Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhuta Bhavanaha, who is the original cause of the cosmic manifestation. Paditushyati, becomes satisfied. Vishva Atma, the super soul of the entire universe. Tishtataha, being situated. Nijashasane, in his own governing situation. Translation. O noble one, so this is the sages speaking to King Vena. He's getting one last chance, and he blows it. O noble one, if the king sees that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the original cause of the cosmic manifestation and the super soul within everyone, is worshipped, then the Lord will be satisfied. Please repeat. O noble one, if the king sees that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the original cause of the cosmic manifestation, and the super soul within everyone is worshipped, then the Lord will be satisfied. The Lord, not the world. That's true, but it's purport by Srila Prabhupada. It is a fact that the government's duty is to see that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is satisfied by the activities of the people as well as by the activities of the government. There is no possibility of happiness if the government or citizenry have no idea of Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the original cause of the cosmic manifestation, or if they have no knowledge of Bhuta Bhavana, who is Vishvatma, or the Super Soul, the soul of everyone's soul. The conclusion is that without engaging in devotional service, neither the citizens nor the government can be happy in any way. At the present moment, neither the king nor the governing body is interested in seeing that the people are engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Rather, they are more interested in advancing the machinery of sense gratification. Consequently, they are becoming more and more implicated in the complex machinery of the stringent laws of nature. People should be freed from the entanglement of the three modes of material nature, and the only process by which this is possible is surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is advised in the Bhagavad Gita. Unfortunately, neither the government nor the people in general have any idea of this. They are simply interested in sense gratification and in being happy in this life. The word nijashasane, in his own governmental duty, indicates that both the government and the citizens are responsible for the execution of varnashram dharma. Once the populace is situated in the varnashram dharma, there is every possibility of real life and prosperity both in this world and in the next. Om Jnana Tibarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, as I mentioned before, the Bhagavatam came about because of the great concern of all the sages in the world who were concerned about the advent of Kali Yuga. They could see the degradation of the age that was coming. Already there were hints of it. I would like to point out that the Mahabharat War, the Battle of Kurukshetra, began with everybody following the rules and regulations nicely. There are rules of war. And for instance, you have this battle going on, raging, and all these warriors shooting each other, and elephants and horses being killed, blood everywhere. But then as soon as the conch shell blows at the evening, when the fighting is meant to end, then everyone puts down their weapons, or takes them back to their camps, whatever. And then they come out and they sometimes go to each other's tents and meet each other, have dinner, prasadam dinner, hopefully. And talk about the day's fighting, complimenting each other. Wow, that was quite a display of archery you had there. You killed so many people. And then, Kshatriya talk. And then they went back to their camps, took rest in the morning, and the conch shell blows, and they come back at it again. In other words, there's a certain amount of civilization that is meant to rule there. It doesn't just get out of hand. And one of the main things is, which you don't find today even in a hint, is that women and children and old men and non-combatants are protected. They're not meant to be killed on the battlefield or anywhere else. That's a grave sin because everyone's concerned about dharma, on the battlefield. They're meant to be on both sides, and they're hoping that if they win the battle, they'll enjoy the kingdom on earth, and if they get killed, they'll go to heaven. Well, they're not going to heaven if they're performing atrocities on the battlefield. So there's all this very concern. It's understanding. There's higher authorities. So the battle started in that way, but in the end, it was almost as if Kali Yuga had come in and it was ascendant. You had Ashvatthama, killing the 5 sleeping sons of Draupadi, and then throwing the Brahmastra and trying to kill Uttara and Parikshit in the womb. So everything kind of degraded as it went on. And that's symbolic of what happened in the Kali Yuga, because that battle was fought near the end of Dwapara Yuga, right? I mean, it's just the cusp. So things have degraded in 5,000 years, and they're meant to degrade even more. But here we see that these Brahmins are making an effort to do what is right. They don't want to go back to the point where there's no king, because Anga, his father, just left because Vena was so impossible. He was incorrigible. He had what you would call bad genes or something. No matter what you taught him, he was set at being a demon. And so finally, Anga, the father, just left in the middle of the night, took sannyas goodbye. So that now, as soon as the dacoits heard about that, they started stealing and taking over. So you have to have some kind of government. And finally they said, okay, well, let's try Vena. Maybe he'll grow into the position. That was hoped for our present president also. Well, we know that he's this way, but maybe the office itself will change it. So, but it didn't. He came to the end conclusion that he was God. As in a few verses you'll see, this is what he's saying. That you're telling me to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but this is adharmic. You're saying, you're thinking you're telling me dharma, but this is adharma. Real dharma is that the king is God. The king is meant to be a representative of God. There's a word, I forget in Sanskrit, that describes king and the Lord. And therefore, the actual king needs to be informed about it from his activities from the transcendental source. And that's the Brahmins. They are meant to be clear conduits, Prabhupada would say, transparent media, a transparent via medium, to the Lord's instructions. And then if the king is following the instructions of the Brahmin class, then things can go on nicely in the society. Well, they're trying to do it one more time here. So their instruction is very cogent. O noble king, if the king sees that the Lord, the original cause of the cosmic manifestation, the super soul and everyone, is worshipped, the Lord will be satisfied. And then the next few verses, if the Lord is satisfied, then the praja, the citizens, will be very happy. The king can be at peace like that. This is what they're offering to him, an actual success. In other words, what they're doing here is something that the Brahmins are meant to do, and that Srila Prabhupada and everyone in the line of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas do, relying on Krishna for protection. And that is what is called speaking truth to power. Does everyone know what that phrase means? It's pretty obvious, right? We see it in Prahlad Maharaj, very obviously. Fearlessly, little child, you just get this image of this man-mountain, Hiranyakashipu, demon who's taken over the universe. All the demigods except Shiva and Brahma and Vishnu are bowing down to him, And here's this little child, fragile little 5-year-old, and he's saying, Father, basically you're a huge fool, best of the demons. So best of the demons, the best thing I learned today is that you should give up all this materialistic household life, which is like a blind well, go to Vrindavan, take shelter of Krishna. That's what he's telling his father. Imagine the courage that it took. So that's repeated. I'm reminded of Haridas Thakur, who was born in a Muslim family, but of course he became Namacharya. He was chanting Hare Krishna, is highly respected. Even the pious Muslims were respecting him, to speak of the Vaishnavas, the Hindus. But it was a big challenge to the rulers of the day, Nawab Hussain Shah and his Qazi, his sheriff. They saw this as seditious. Well, maybe the other Muslims will get the idea, and what will happen. So they arrested him, and the high point of the whole pastime, one of the high points of the pastime, besides him surviving that beating, was that says, well, look, all you have to do is say, there's a certain phrase that the Muslims say that they're offering allegiance to Allah, You do that and everything will be okay. In other words, convert back. You went astray into the Hindu Dharma, but you're born in this exalted family, the Muslim family. How could you give it up? So Haridas didn't take it seriously. He said, well, look, you've converted so many Hindus into Muslims. What if one Muslim becomes a Hindu? What's the big deal? So Qazi didn't take kindly to that. So he gave him one more ultimatum. Either you stop chanting this Hare Krishna, or we'll execute you. That was basically the deal. And he laughed. He laughed in his face. And he famously said, I don't know the Bengali, maybe you know it, you can cut me up into little pieces, but I'll never stop chanting Hare Krishna. You imagine the strength of that. So that's I mean, these are Brahmins. They're not warriors. They're challenging the king. Now, of course, they have a power which they'll show that they can actually execute him. But basically, this idea of staying with the absolute truth, even when there's danger and there's opposition, This is central to our line, and it was shown by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, especially Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who risked his life. There was a conspiracy to assassinate him when he went to Vrindavan, because he was challenging the vested interests of the Brahma Bandhu class, those who were maybe born in Brahmin families, but they didn't have the qualifications. The whole thing, everything is judged by the quality and the activity. If someone is born as a Shudra, a parent should be famous, but he shows the qualities of a Brahmin, then he should be regarded as a Brahmin. There's a verse, I don't know, Narada Muni speaks this verse. This is the basis of our whole society. Otherwise, how could we be sitting here? You could be sitting here, but you shouldn't be sitting alone, I think. Who else has been born in a Brahmin family, or even a pious? But the process of Krishna consciousness, Bhakti Yoga, is so purifying that one can be qualified to even be a sannyasi and a guru from any station, if you show the qualities and the activities, guna and karma. So Vena is showing the guna and karma of the demon, and they're trying one last time to instruct him. And the basic principle here is that a society has to be centered on sacrifice for Vishnu. Otherwise, the activity of the people will bind one to the material world. Remember that verse? Yagyartart kamanonyatya lokoyam karma bandhana. 3:9. It's a central principle. And if society is based in that, especially in this age, if there's massive... imagine if the government would open up beautiful temples, or at least kirtan halls, every couple of miles, and encourage people to go. And the government leaders were coming down and leading the kirtan. Everyone come. Free prasadam, free food. Everyone would come. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. In other words, this is what they're meant to do, is to encourage people to follow real dharma and follow it themselves. So that's why they say the Lord will be satisfied if the king sees, they call him old noble one. Okay. This is Vena they're talking to. But they're trying to say, oh king, you will be a noble one, Mahabhaga. You will actually fit the description if you see that the Lord is satisfied by the people all performing sacrifices. That's the idea. And he is the original cause of the cosmic manifestation, implying that you're not. And on they go like this. So Prabhupada makes the point that this is the duty of the state, of the government. They're not meant to just exact taxes and oppress the people and cash in on their position. I mean, this is total corruption. And the tendency is to do that without the countervailing force, without the understanding that is provided by the Bhagavad Gita and our other books, and genuine understanding of who we are and what our role is, then one becomes completely forgetful of one's position, and you get intoxicated with your position. If you're a leader, the Kshatriya class becomes corrupted. What do you think Bhrigupati was about? Parashuram. He became disgusted with the corruption of the Kshatriya class, and he annihilated him. 21 times, 22 times? Blood was flowing. So what about today? I mean, where do you have a king or a leader or a president or whatever you want to call him, prime minister, who's actually following this principle of seeing that the people are pious and that they're advancing and that they're performing their duties in Varnashram? It's not happening. So the activities of the government should be directed that ultimately everyone engages in the devotional service of the Lord. The king or government head is supposed to be representative of God. This is the idea, is that he's deserving of the authority and respect because he's representing the Lord. If he fails to do that, then it all becomes just a big, oppressive con game, scam, whatever you want to call it. And the praja, the people, are in distress. And that's exactly what's happening today, all over the world. You have super unqualified leaders, led by our own glorious dear leader, and all around, he's having an effect all over the world. You have these leaders coming in whose only business is to oppress the people, push the ecosystem further toward collapse, We may not realize it, that many of the breaths we take, we're breathing in oxygen, and breathing in air. And taking the Amazon forest, it's huge. It's like as big as, Texas? Bigger than that. That's providing so much of the oxygen. So now we've got a guy in Brazil who is licking his chops. All right, let's exploit it even more. They've already been burning it and cutting it down, So many minerals under there we can mine, Then gradually it'll be harder to breathe. Then that's the problem. What could be more demonic than that? So that's what we're faced with today. And Prabhupada wanted us to bring about a revolution in the world's society. And the basis of it is, we've been reading in the evening about knowledge. We just finished the 4th chapter, which is entitled Transcendental Knowledge. And the whole Bhagavad Gita is knowledge that's essential for society. If you don't know who you are, if you don't know what this world is, if you don't know what the source of the Supreme Lord is and what the relationships are, how can you act for your own best interest? You can't. You're going to be caught in the bonds of the paradigm of sense gratification. And what does Prashabdev say? We should know this verse. Nunam pramatta kurute vikarma yadindriya pritaya pranoti. That those who are simply engaged with indriya priti, which is precisely what sense gratification translates as, are certainly mad. They're deranged, pramatta. And they perform vikarma. Vikarma is activity with no reference to the Shastra. Just the basis of, plans of sense gratification on an individual level, a mass level. How can we best exploit and quickly become millionaires, billionaires? Totally demonic. So he says, Nasado manya, it's not a very good idea, says Rishabdev, because you're sure to get another body, which is a vehicle for suffering. But that's kind of just the basic outline of what's happening. You're sure to cause huge amounts of suffering to others, all of which will come down on your head at the time of death, and you'll be millions of years being punished in lower species, hellish planets and everything. In other words, material life is when you understand it, if you understand it, you realize there's no, percentage in it. There may be, for a few who have some pious credit, some temporary sense gratification, some temporary being on the top of the hill. I'm so rich, I'm so influential, whatever. A few years. So there's a little bit of, pleasure there on that level. But there's a whole eon's worth of pain. In other words, a little sense gratification, a whole lot of pain for many, many, many years. What's the percentage there? It's a fool's game. But yoga, bhakti yoga, the process, a little austerity, yes, there has to be that to wean us away from sense gratification. But the results are unbelievable. It's like millions and millions of percentage greater. Eternal happiness. Gopi bhavara sarmatabdala hari kalola magdomaha. The perfect example of the Goswamis who gave up their position in the government. They had power and pelf, as I said, so much aristocracy, influence, money, everything like that. Gave it up as insignificant, straw in the street, when they came in touch with Lord Chaitanya. Because they understood, they were already devotees, you have to understand, Rupa and Sanatana. But they were coerced into becoming part of the government. This is what I understand. That the Nawab needed them to help run the government. And he said, if you don't, then I'm going to repress and arrest the Brahmins and Vaishnavas, persecute. So, on that basis, they entered the government. But when the Lord Chaitanya came, they said, okay, we're giving it up somehow or other and leaving. And they became as from the top of influence and money and honor materially, they gave all of that up as tuchyavat. Tuchyavat means insignificant. It's like straw in the street. And they took up the role of the most austere mendicants you can imagine. Constantly walking different tree every night. They didn't even make home in a tree. Nowadays you got the homeless, but they make their little camp, and they got their little area, right? It's not the same thing. So they were going from tree to tree, and they had practically no clothes. They had some rejected rags that they're wearing. No sleeping bag, no lighters, whatever. And they practically didn't eat. So you're down to practically the minimal just for surviving. But what was their status? What did they have? They were the richest. They were the richest in the world. Prema dhan. You know what dhan means? It means wealth, treasure. That's why Dharma Prabhu likes to sing Jai Jai Radha Giridhari, Radha Giridhari, Prabhupada Prana Dhana He, Dhana, the wealth of the life. In other words, the very life and soul, Prabhupada, so the deity is Krishna. And there's a whole list of temples in Vrindavan you sing. So Prana Dhana. So what is real value? That we have to know. What is really valuable in this world? It's not extravagant sense gratification and all these things. It's actually, even just a little bit of attraction to Krishna is so valuable. And it negates your attraction for all of this craziness. It's what's really valuable. First of all, it doesn't have to end. Anytime has anyone ever said to you in this Hare Krishna movement, okay, that's enough chanting. Just stop. Now there's something else to do. Never. You have something else to do? Great. Do it and chant Hare Krishna at the same time. But Hare Krishna mantra is actually the source of the greatest pleasure. So you have that with you at every moment. Whether you're rich or poor or old or young or 140 IQ or 98 IQ. You see what I'm saying? It doesn't depend on your external circumstances. So Gopi Bhavana Samatam Harikalola Magnomoho. This is the third line. They gave up all the material thing, but they gave it up for the most valuable. They're diving in the ocean of Gopi Bhava and the highest level of Prema Bhakti. So that principle is there throughout. And the king, the leader of the country or any subunit within the country, is meant to give those who he or she has influence on to take up the process and tap into that pleasure so that you can push back on the waves of the enticement for sense gratification, which ultimately takes you into the hellish suffering. That's the actual mission of human life. Bhakti pareshanu bhava varakta anyatra cha. Prabhupada would quote the first line and a couple of syllables of this verse in the 11th canto. What is that? What does it mean? Is that those who are Prabhudyamanas are actually surrendered to the Lord and seriously practicing, then three things happen at once, practically simultaneously. This is a wonderful comparison. It's a comparison to sitting down to a wonderful feast of prasadam for a whole day of fasting. I like to give you when Nrsinga's appearance day. It's usually a late feast because it's not, it's the evening time, but when it falls, it's about 7:30, 8 o'clock sometimes. So it's a serious fast, okay? And now they're cooking it up, honoring Lord Nrsinga Dev, ceremonies. Okay, now it's time for the feast. So everybody's got a good appetite. So this verse compares the experience of Krishna consciousness to taking prasadam. So the first part, this is the Yogendra speaking. Bhakti pareshanubhav rakta anyatra cha means three things. First is bhakti. Now bhakti here means the pleasure of serving Krishna, the experience of reciprocation. And along with pada isha anubhava, the direct experience of the Lord in one's life, seeing Him within the heart and simultaneously virakta anyatracha, detachment from everything else, all material things. So how does one get this great experience? Anyatrachaisha trika eka kala, simultaneously, same time. Papadhyamanas yatashana, papadhyama for the surrendered soul, who one is really surrendered to the Lord at every moment. His activities are part of bhakti. Yatashana, just like one is taking a meal, yatashana taksu tushti pushti chadapaya anugasam. With every bite, you experience three things. First is the tushti, the pleasure of tasting the prasadam. That's undeniable. But at the same time, you're being nourished. And at the same time, chudapasa onagayam, your hunger is leaving at every moment, the more you take. So your hunger for material things is being quenched and finished. So that's the tushti is the satisfaction from being Krishna conscious, serving Krishna, the pleasure, the ananda, the bliss, the attraction. And the nourishment is the soul actually again being in the presence of God. In other words, being Krishna conscious is itself nourishing for the soul. Otherwise, we're starving in this world. We're like in a desert. That analogy is given a lot, right? What do you need in the desert? Water, But the way you're going to find Krishna in this material world, unless you walk into the Hare Krishna temple. Basically, it's a big desert. But as soon as you start surrendering and really practicing seriously, you feel nourished at every moment. And you're not so concerned about physical nourishment. Like these Goswamis, you decrease your eating to minimal. And then, the blessed vairagya, the detachment from all these material things, which is keeping us bound to this world. So that's the real treasure, to be able to practice that. And it's given by, it's meant to be propagated by the leaders in every, the political leaders, religious leaders, the family, anyone who has influence over children. This is another instruction of Rishabdev. Guru nasatsat, swajano nasatsat, pita nasatsat. Don't become a guru, don't become a relative, don't become a father or a mother or a demigod or a husband, unless those who are looking to you for authority, your dependents, unless you can deliver them from birth and death. In other words, you yourself are a Vaishnava and you're willing to instruct that and on those rules. So this applies on the micro level, family, as well as the big family of any society or any country. But Vena has gone in the wrong direction. He's done the worst thing of trying to take the position of God, and he's actually deluded himself into thinking he's God. So he's going to meet his fate. Okay, Bhagavan is Yagya Purush, or Yagya Purusha, which means he is the real object of sacrifice. Bhoktaram Yagya Tapasam Sarvaloka Mahesharam. This is Prabhupada's peace formula. It's Krishna's verse, but Prabhupada has dubbed it the peaceful. Because at the end, he says, Jatpa Jarmam Shantam Richati. One that says that I, says Krishna, am the actual enjoyer of all the sacrifices and austerities. Why? Because I'm Sarvaloka Mahesharam. I am the Supreme Lord of all the worlds. But I'm not just some tyrant, who's trying to give me more sacrifices. What's going on? No, he's actually the friend of all. In other words, sacrificing to him, our lives are very, moment to moment, is the best thing we can do. This is his giving us the opportunity because he's our best friend. Suridam. There's different words for friend as there are in English. You have your acquaintance, you have your buddies, you have your bosom buddies, which is the closest thing we have to a suridam. Rida means heart. But suridam means the friend who always has your welfare at heart. Where can you find a friend like that? You may find a friend who's ready to help you, but there's a certain limit, Okay, Glenn, you slept on my couch for now 3 months. Do you have a plan for when you're going to leave? In other words, there's a certain limit to the friendship. There's no limit to Krishna's friendship. Millions of births, he's been staying with us as the super soul, trying to give us good instruction, telling us how to act like that. Now we have to, if we start listening to him, taking advantage of his friendship, we can attain real peace. So Vishnu is the Yagya Purush, but not for Vena. He wants to be the Yagya Purush. And then there's the idea of Varnashram. Let's see what Prabhupada says. Let's see. No possibility of happiness if the citizenry have no idea of Bhagavan. So that's what is that? Loke samasta sukhino bhavantu, something like that. This is like one of the nice little phrases from Vedic culture, is that let everyone be happy. Loke, how's it go? Loke samastu? Sukhino bhavantu. So let everyone become happy. So just that idea, how to do that, of course, is through bhakti, is the proper attitude of the king or the leader. Not now, how can I exploit, so that I can become richer by this position? This is corruption. It's corruption in the legal system, and corruption is described in the Bhagavatam. So that's what happens when the living entity loses touch with Krishna and gets totally controlled by these material modes of nature. It's a very dangerous situation. So what is the antidote? Krishna consciousness. And that's why Prabhupada, Krishna, he says, even paramparapaptam imam rajashiyavadu, that this science has come down, that the sun god, his son, Manu and Ikshvaku, these are all kings and leaders. I spoke it to them. Because Krishna is very efficient. If the leaders can become Krishna conscious, then he knows that the people will. And so, but as the time goes, it becomes lost. And so he periodically needs to renew it. So the Bhagavatam expands on the themes of the Bhagavad Gita. And here you have an instance where a king has gone way off the reservation, just the opposite of what he's supposed to be doing. But the Brahmins are still trying to do their duty and correct him. But you'll see what happens in a little while. So let's see if there's some other points. Prabhupada, he analyzes perfectly. At the present moment, neither the king nor the governing body is interested in seeing that the people are engaged in the service of the Lord. Rather, they're more interested in advancing machinery of sense gratification. And that means their own also. It's blatant now. It's blatant. You've had these Secretary of the Interior, he installs some $30,000 thing in his office, and he's just writing and taking junkets on the tax money. It was blatant. And finally, he quit, or he was being prosecuted. Because if you don't have any care for the people, then why be in the government? To make money, to cash in. It's almost like a cartoon of the Bhagavatam is being illustrated every day. Practically we have the Vena in office. So, what do we do about it? We become devotees. We try to, spread Krishna consciousness in our little way, and when we can, we support some of the huge preaching that's going on as far as possible, and it's up to Krishna's hands. We can do our part by understanding the philosophy, practicing, and trying to propagate through book distribution, Harinam, and other means, the science of bhakti that Srila Prabhupada has given us. Okay, any questions, comments on these points? This is all very pertinent to our present situation in the world. Hare Krishna. All right, let's end on an upbeat note. Oh, we have the mic. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were waiting for the mic.
So, when we're preaching to people or trying to communicate Krishna consciousness to people, sometimes, there's certain things that, a lot of the things that we're preaching, they're not so familiar with, and almost seems weird to them.
Yeah.
So maybe you could comment, or if someone's to ask some devotees, like, oh, you guys are celibate, so what's the problem? What's the problem with sex? What's the problem? Specifically, like young people, like young men. I'm talking. We're all, there's young men here. So when a young man is talking to another young man, that might come up. So what are devotees supposed to say? Because it's not exactly easy to communicate that to another young Southern California man.
I know.
So maybe you could comment on that.
Well, I think that you don't want to lead with that. That's the first thing you said. You have to start with what the who are you, and explain the situation of the soul in material world, just like Krishna does, in the second chapter. And once the idea, and it's not really that hard to understand, the whole idea of, what is this? Prabhupada used to do it with kids. What is this? Oh, this is my hand. And point to your foot. Oh, this is my foot. And point to your head. Oh, this is my head. Now point to yourself. Oh, which one of those? None of those can be. In other words, the idea that you first say, okay, there's a soul and there's a body. And we usually don't think about the soul. We're so absorbed in the subtle and material body. That's the first thing. And then if there's a little understanding, a little enlightenment there, you said, yeah, that makes sense. I'm the knower of these things, even of my mind, so you can understand. And then you get to the point, which is not so alien, because the law of karma and reincarnation, it's not something new in the Western world. Some people believe it or think it might be true or whatever, far out, but it's not just rejected out of hand most of the time. So once you get into the point of where people think, well, it could be true, that I lived before, you know, and there's so much empirical evidence you can bring up, even if you need to, near-death experiences or young kids who remember, you know, their previous lives as fighter pilots, you know, big on YouTube, millions of hits. So, okay, so now we got the soul being born again. And you explain that our actual nature is to be blissful all the time. Jerry, are you blissful all the time? Are you absolutely experiencing the highest happiness? Well, no, I can't really say that. Sometimes I have a hard time. You know, my boss doesn't like me, my teacher doesn't like me, whatever, you know. You know, and then I had to break up with my girlfriend. That was pretty traumatic. So it's obvious that this is not a world full of complete happiness. Sometimes there's a lot of suffering going on. So then comes, you know, a point where you have to bring in stuff that is not so. All of that is something that you can understand just by thinking. You know, I mean, who can deny that there's a lot of pain in this world? But we learn from the Vedic wisdom that it's possible to maximize our pleasure to a great degree and minimize the pain to nil, you know. And so that becomes an interesting prospect. And so then I think that maybe it's proper to, you know, introduce some of the actual people who have done that historically, or even in the current days. You know, you can talk about Prabhupada and how he showed these symptoms of, even in great difficulty, he was peaceful and, you know, blissful. So then comes the idea is that, well, what is it that causes the suffering? Why is there periodic suffering even in our own lives? And one can show how sense pleasure, of which sex is a big part, actually oftentimes results in unhappiness. You've got unwanted children, you've got the STDs, you know, and you've got the girl's other boyfriend coming at you. You know, marriage often ends in divorce. I mean, it's not just all happiness, even though that thing is there. And if you show the analogy, this is why I often bring up the idea of drug addiction, because drugs is a similar proposition. No one starts out taking drugs because he wants to become a drug addict, you know, and the hollow men, you know, living on the street and, you know, being miserable. You think there's pleasure there, and there may very well be. But the cost is that down the road, you know, there's a whole lot of suffering. So unrestricted, unlimited sex is the same thing as just like a drug, and it's sure to produce suffering of one, you know, different kinds which we're familiar with. And that's you know, the principle of the soul being attached to matter and therefore having to go through repeated deaths, because the main thing matter we're attached to is this very body, and the body is obviously mortal, you know. So that whole idea of the temporality or the ephemerality of everything material, all the things that we treasure and all the things that make us happy, you know, including our relationships and the people we're related to, that has to come to an end. And the breaking of those relationships with the people and the things and the experiences that make us happy is the cause of great suffering. So don't you want to come to that point of eternal happiness, you know, where we're in the spiritual world, where everything is, there's no matter, there's no end, there's no time. Now that may sound far out, but that's part of the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. So someone has to kind of suspend his disbelief enough to try the process. And that's why, you know, Prabhupada's preaching basically was Kirtan and Prasadam. You know, in other words, a big part of it. Kirtan and Prasadam. No philosophy. Give him the experience. He'd sit in that park for 3 hours beating the drum, you know, surrounded by a few devotees. And far out, let's check it out, you know. And before long, people are joining, magicians are coming, you know, and there's a lot of people chanting. People are getting a buzz. And then you go back to the temple and people would follow him to find out more. That's the basic principle of preaching. Don't confuse people with a lot of philosophy. Give them the experience, kirtan, you know, and a nice feast. And then in that context where they actually experience something, here's why. And here's how you can increase it, and here you can perfect it. It's a whole process. That's kind of an outline. Okay, one more and then we have to adjourn.
It seems like, in order to get people to have that experience, there is the implication of, we can go on Harinam and give that experience, but coming to the temple really allows them to, experience really deep kirtan, experience really nice prasadam. But it seems like people don't even have the faith to make it even to the temple, because people have so little inclination towards organized religion nowadays, that for them to even come to the temple, people aren't interested.
Big leap of faith.
Yeah, it's why Krishna Lounge, I think, is successful, because it's not quite like an organized religion. It's more laid back than that. And it seems like a lot of people in my generation, they have no interest in associating themselves with some type of organized institutional structures. So it's like
we have to go out to them. You have to figure out ways to bring it out to them. And they, as you know, because you spend more time in LA, and I just learned that they not only have the thing on campus there, but there's also a mantra lounge off campus, which I think is people are more likely to visit, because it's a little intimidating, right?
Yeah.
So that was, that's Dravida Swami's genius, the loft preaching. Nowhere near a temple, it's a yoga studio or something, far out, and people come and be curious. And those who are a little interested, then they become, curious what's going on in the other room.
ISV has this Kirtan Oasis for their Harinam that they do once a month. They rent out a park in Palo Alto on one of the main shopping center streets. And it's completely it looks like a music festival. There's LED lights, there's book tables, there's prasadam distribution, but they've completely organized it in such a way that people just, what the heck is this? Even if the visual experience is so enticing, that you're just oh man, I have to know more about this.
That's what the Lord Chaitanya's movement is racking your brain, how you can somehow attract them. We don't know. I don't know if you know, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he had these big demonstrations. We know about the dioramas, but he had more than that. He had magic shows. He had all kinds of ways to get the masses in, and then at least they'll hear the kirtan, take prasadam, somehow or other get their attention. I remember the first two Rath Yatras in LA. I was there, 77, 78, and there was an elephant. Did you know that? We had the devotee riding on an elephant, and all kinds of stuff like that. It was really it's still tremendous, but that's the whole idea. Somehow or other, whoa, what's going on over there? Rath Yatra down Fifth Avenue. How can you not pay attention? Oh, what is that? Take the book. Listen. This is what. So it's a constant struggle to get the attention, especially in this age of people who are so jaded. They're jaded by the present culture, cynical. The churches are emptying out. The parents cannot inspire their children to take up serious, weekly thing, because the churches have been shown to be so corrupt. That's a big thing. But aside from that, it just doesn't give them anything. So that's how can we provide a sensual experience, and at the same time attract them enough so they will hear a little bit, take prasadam, maybe take a book, and then amongst those, be serious enough to take up the process. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.